Okay, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to today's decision meeting for the Culture, Leisure and Economic Development portfolio. Lovely to see everyone. For the purposes of the public record, my name is Ben Dowling and I'm the current Cabinet Member for this area of the Council. We'll start with a quick whiz round so people know who, or hopefully everybody in the room knows who each other is, but certainly for the public record, we'll go round. Who wants to start? Over here.
James Daly, Cultural Development and Projects Officer.
I'm Felicity Wood, the Public Participation Officer at the DDay Story.
Ross Fairbrother, General Manager at the DDay Story.
Jane Mee, Museums and Hot Walls Manager.
Sue Page, Finance Manager.
Adrian Rosier, Parks Manager.
Claire Watkins, Business Manager.
Laura Weston, Education and Outreach Officer for the Conan Doyle Collection.
Dan James, Operations Manager for the Library Service.
Dave Percival, Library and Archive Service Manager.
Councillor UD, Opposition Spokesperson for Progressive Portsmouth Group. I forgot the name of my party. Progressive. I can't remember it. Triple P.
I'm Jacob Shaw. I'm just kind of with Ben today.
For the record, Jacob's on work experience. He's shadowing the leader, but apparently that's not as good as shadowing me, so he's back for today's meeting. And then Anna?
Anna Martin, Democratic Services.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. So, apologies for absence. For the public record, I think we've had apologies from Councillor Coles, who is the Labour representative on this portfolio. Have we heard from Councillor Symes that she's normally here? Okay, so we haven't heard from Councillor Symes, who's the Conservative rep, but we'll see if she appears in any moment. And we'll move on. Any declarations of interest? No interest today. Just lots of very interesting things on the agenda. So we'll go through the agenda. I'm conscious that everyone here has already heard almost all of the information that's going to be said today. So can we just do top level highlights for each report, and then I'll come to Councillor UD for any questions, etc. on each thing, and hopefully everyone gets to go home at a reasonable time today. So we'll start with the Summer Reading Challenge.
Thank you, Councillor Dowling. So this is a report to just capture our activity last year with the Library and Archive Service. So the Summer Reading Challenge happens every year. Children are encouraged to read up to 6 items, any kind of book. They can take part online now and in our libraries. And last year we had 1,266 children complete the challenge and 2,770 children sign up. So given the previous year, 2020, which was understandably had low participation rates, we were very heartened by participation last year. The library outreach team produced a promotional video, which went out to the primary schools, and we managed to engage I think 4,000 people turned up to the winners event at Southsea Castle, which was delivered in partnership with our colleagues in the museum service once again. So the theme was an environmental theme, Wild World Heroes. Next year this summer rather, is going to be a science and technology based theme, Gadgeteers, and we will continue our promotional activities with schools in the city. And because our own personal challenge as a library service each year is the bigger the challenge gets, the greater the impact on our budgets. We will be applying for the holiday activities and food programme funding this year. We took part in a pilot scheme last year, which was handing out additional packs to the providers across the city, which put the packs in the hands of children that perhaps wouldn't habitually attend libraries. So that was very positive. So we will be going for that funding this year as well, so we can actually have some food-based activities and library activities in our branches. So I think that would cover the challenge, I think.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I'm happy, and the more we can expand the provision to half, the better. Councillor Udy.
Thanks, Dave. As we sign up, but we never finish it every year. But thank you, and I'm determined to finish it one year with the kids. But
This year.
yeah, I will try my absolute hardest. Kids are just banging to the Diary of a Wimpy Kid at the moment, so if I can just get them to read that straight for the whole of the summer, then maybe we'll get somewhere with them. But thank you so much, and thank you for putting the food provision and making it more inclusive and accessible to people that maybe want to come out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. There's nobody else here to ask questions, so thank you very much, Dave. Recommendations approved as written, and we'll move forward. So, still on libraries, presumably still with yourself?
Yes, thank you. So this is a report, just for information. I wanted particularly to introduce to new members the Library Universal offers, which are around reading, digital and information, culture and creativity, and health and well-being, which is the subject of this report. So these are national drivers from Libraries Connected, which all libraries across the country are expected to provide in some way. So the report details investment from, amongst others, Macmillan Cancer Support and our colleagues in Public Health, PCC Housing for work that we did with a funded project with homelessness in the city, and also just highlighting some of our tenants that we've got in the library as well, like Beehive and Society of St James, that are supporting some of our most vulnerable people as well. We're very fortunate to have a vision impairment services officer, so the report talks about some of the activity that she undertakes, Braille teaching sessions, IT support sessions and social groups. We have Reading Friends as launched last year, which is an initiative to bring groups of some of our most vulnerable citizens together to have socialisation and just really get people together through the power of libraries. And also we've continued to deliver and develop our home library service through the pandemic as well, with more beneficiaries than pre-pandemic taking advantage of our services. And finally, I just wanted to point out some of the links with what Library and Archives are doing with the health and wellbeing strategy that's been published, the consultation document, which has a vision of a healthy and happy city, and where people are brought together and given opportunities to meet and participate. And I think I was hoping to highlight really in the report the wide variety of activities that libraries are doing to meet those objectives.
Great, thank you, Dave. From my perspective, a lot of the things within the culture portfolio sometimes have certain very old and stereotypical views of, in terms of the general public, whether it's museums, libraries, or indeed parks. But actually in Portsmouth, we're so far away from that stereotypical view, which is exactly where we need to be. So the fact that we can boast about how libraries are more than just buildings with books, the better, and the health and wellbeing impacts, the better. And I could probably copy and paste that comment about many of the things we're going to talk about today. But the fact that it's here and there's that public view on that, I think is really important. Councillor Udy. Thumbs up. Thank you very much, Dave. There's nothing to approve here. It was just an update for the public record, which is really appreciated. Okay, wonderful. Item 5, over to Adrian to discuss parks, fees and charges.
Thank you, Councillor Darling. This is the annual report seeking approval for the fees and charges for the use of parks and sports facilities in 2022. In the main, CPI inflation rates have been applied to the majority of fees and charges shown in Appendix A. For brevity, I will just make reference to any changes to the normal fees and charges. So for hire of parks and open spaces, the report makes reference to Victoria Park project, and events will play a significant role in the activities delivered there. We'll be looking to make a draft of a guidance document for events in the park, and this will likely mirror the charges shown for other sites, but for now we've just shown a category for stalls and markets, since the consultation work suggested these are likely to feature, and this will enable a suitable charge to be applied on the number and size of stall rather than the head count as defined within those current charges. For the outdoor fitness permit scheme, this remains an area that needs to be reviewed, but for now these charges are proposed to increase by CPI but reduce the permit application fee and remove the permit renewal fee. For sports pitches, the one change would be at Drayton Park and the cricket charge. We've previously attracted a higher rate there due to the site amenities that were available, but we've realigned the fee to reflect the use of the pitch and the change room, and any further use of the pavilion is subject to a separate agreement with Fleur de Lis, who are the tenant of the pavilion. The report also gives summary on performance since the start of the pandemic at Great Saltons Golf Course, and here we continue to outperform the regional trend. Despite some difficulties when there was a return to play in 2021 and with pests and diseases affecting the greens, we amended some of the charges at that time, and that's proven successful, with season ticket memberships increasing by 20% and the total number of rounds played between April and November already matching the 3-year average for a full 12 months. So we're predicting a 20% increase in total rounds by the end of March. So for golf charges, it's actually proposed to retain last year's season ticket prices and green fees for this coming year.
Wonderful, thank you, Adrian. I think this is fine. This is largely inflationary, and there's some simplifying stuff in there as well. Councillor Udy? Nothing, okay. Fees approved as per the recommendations. And before we move on, which is going back to Adrian, I forgot to do the housekeeping. So if there's a fire, we should leave and meet outside by Queen Victoria's statue. Thank you. Over to Adrian for the next agenda item.
Okay, so this report relates to the Reviving Victoria Park project. As you're aware, the City Council was successful with its round 2 application to the National Lottery Heritage Fund and offered a grant of £2.27 million in December towards the restoration of Victoria Park. This grant's in addition to the £251,000 that was initially secured to enable the development phase work to be completed, and has led to the project proposals being developed on the back of extensive community engagement work. The grant is subject to the City Council confirming it will deliver the proposals, listed as the approved purposes in the notification letter attached as an appendix within the project timeline of 31st of March 2026. The works described, there are a mix of infrastructure, restoration, planting, interpretation and activities form the total project cost of £2.96 million, with the difference between this figure and the grant being funded by the City Council, seal contributions and other grants. The City Council has to confirm that it will comply with the National Lottery Heritage Fund's standard terms of grant and additional grant conditions. These terms and conditions do not raise any particular concerns, and the project team are aware of the requirements. One of the additional conditions requires the City Council to record the decision authorising acceptance of the grant. Therefore, this report enables that approval so that we may provide the National Lottery Heritage Fund with the necessary documentation they require.
Thank you, Adrian. Well, I don't think we would want to miss out on quite so much money by not having it noted in a meeting. So I think we're all very happy, and it's really positive news. The project team worked really hard on it, and it really is the people's park. You know, thinking about my own involvement in that park, you know, I played on the toy train. I did youth work in it as a teenager, and now I walk around it at lunchtime. So it is the people's park for everyone to use for whatever reasons and life stage they're at. So the fact that we're able to bring this kind of renaissance to it is really, really humbling for the whole city, I think. Councillor Udy?
A few things. Number one, are you too young to remember the greenhouse?
Yes.
Okay.
Next question.
They had, like, you could have stepping stones in there and stuff. It was dope. Also, just wanted to say congratulations, Laura, and get well soon, Jackie, and hopefully see you both soon to do that.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm sure they'll both appreciate that. Anyone else? I doubt it. No. Okay. Recommendations approved. Thank you, Adrian, and thank you to the team. Okay. What's next on the agenda? I should probably know what's coming up next. James, silver.
Thank you, Councillor Dowling. So members will be aware, I'm sure, that we have one of the most important collections of civic silver in the country, which is obviously something for us to be very proud of. So to coincide with the Platinum Jubilee and the 40th anniversary of the Falklands, we're going to be hosting Silver City, an exhibition at Portsmouth Museum and Art Gallery from May 22 to February 23. The silver objects are obviously very impressive, but I think one of the things we've been very pleased about developing the exhibition is how the silver tells stories, the birth of modern Portsmouth in the 16th and 17th centuries, our relationship with the Crown, the armed forces, international links, and how people have used silver in their everyday lives over hundreds of years. So we're very pleased that we've been able to put lots of faces to names and put objects in context. And this builds very much on lessons that we developed from the DDay Story project around selecting objects and aiming stories at audiences. The exhibition, as well as the civic silver, will also include loans from the Royal Navy Trophy Collection, Portsmouth Cathedral. We're going to be borrowing Charles II's marriage certificate, which is a very rare evidence of the marriage of a monarch outside of London. And from the Company of Goldsmiths, we're going to be borrowing the Seymour salt, which was actually Portsmouth's wedding present to Catherine of Braganza in the 17th century. And it's actually illustrated in the panels behind me on the wall. We're very pleased to have received financial support from quite a few sources, from the Silver Society, the Decorative Art Society, the Company of Goldsmiths, and the Paul Mellon Centre for a range of activities. I think it's worth noting as well that most of those funding sources are new to us, which is something we're very pleased about. We've also submitted a bid to the National Lottery Heritage Fund, which, if successful, would include a digital officer to do a lot of work around social media to accompany the exhibition. It will be accompanied by a full engagement programme with events looking not just at the silver itself, but also the stories that are told in the exhibition. So we're very much looking forward to sharing the exhibition with residents and visitors, and our engagement so far suggests that there should be quite a lot of interest locally and nationally.
Brilliant. Thank you, James. That's really, really interesting. And I'm particularly looking forward to the engagement programme. I think the leader is looking forward to talking about plates, and I'm really looking forward to talking about the people behind those plates. So I think between us, there's a story to tell there. But thank you very much. Councillor Udy?
Is that the stuff out there?
The stuff out there is a mere percentage of it. Is that fair to say?
Yes, the stuff out there is a large part of it, but by no means all of it.
Because they love getting the fish out during the Lord Mayor's dinners, don't they? Like that silver fish that's up there. But that's really cool. I didn't know that was a small amount of what we've got, because that's a bonkers amount that we got out there anyway. Cool.
Yeah, so for the public record, the stuff out there is the silverware on display in the Lord Mayor's corridor. I'm taking no questions, no further questions. In which case, James, thank you very much to you, the team, for the work, and the recommendations. Look like they've been written just because there's a need for recommendations, but the recommendations are to note and for it to continue. So yes, they are noted and they should continue. Thank you. Okay, detectives, this is Laura.
Hello. This is to inform about the recent successful funding from Arts Council for the Arthur Conan Doyle Collection Detectives project. So we recently had an event as part of the We Shine celebrations in the city called Illusions of Mystery, which was fantastic and very well received. We have asked the Arts Council for £100,000, and it is about developing our extensive past experience of working with volunteers. So we are going to recruit an army of volunteers called the Detectives, and they will come from a background which is learning difficulties, disabilities. They may have a background in mental health or substance misuse, and it's about giving opportunities in a cultural setting where they can gain experience of working with artists, with authors, with people to set up projects, or they can do kind of more behind the scenes activities such as writing a book for the month, or developing our website or social media, or photographing objects in the museum's collection that are part of the Conan Doyle collection as well. So we're offering a really wide range and diverse list of activities for people. People will come in and they will be asked and offered to be involved in absolutely everything to do with setting up a project or an event, and they will be supported in every single way in which that happens as well. So that is kind of our plan. It's a 2-year project, and we have an exhibition project that is due to happen in spring. We will be looking at the worldwide Doyle. Conan Doyle is internationally recognised. We have a good relationship with people across the world as well, so we will be looking at kind of meeting people across the world and doing talks and then disseminating that information back to the public. So all of these projects will have will be open to the Portsmouth residents to view and to come along and take part in as well. So hopefully we'll have a 360 project where we're involving people, getting people really good experiences, and then carrying it on into the Portsmouth public and giving opportunities for people to come and see the actual Conan Doyle collection as well.
Thank you, Laura. Conan Doyle collection, another really good example of a massive collection of hidden stuff that we have that has so many stories behind it that we can bring to life through this project. So thank you very much for your work and for bringing it here. This is another for information item, so there's no decision as such, but I think it's important that we bring these to a public forum so that there is a democratic airing of some of the work that's going on in the Directorate. Councillor Udy. Wonderful. I think that's seal of approval from the members who are here. So that's noted as it's for information. Yeah, what have I done wrong?
I just had a message from a colleague, Councillor Symes, to send apologies. She can't make it.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks. So to be noted for the record, Councillor Symes has sent apologies. Okay, let's move forward. Libraries and archives charges. Is Lindy here? No, Dan.
It's Dan, yeah. Lindy's substitute for today. So thank you, Councillor Dowling. So this report seeks to make some recommendations for simplifying the charging model in libraries. So it will reflect the changing need of our customers, and also to increase the charges where benchmarking and commercial factors indicate that it's appropriate. So this report really focuses on the room hire charges for the menu in theatre and room D, which are on the 3rd floor of Central Library. So they're the only 2 rooms that we have available for hire now. And also the Portsmouth History Centre charges and some printing charges. So anything that we haven't specified in the report would remain unchanged. So starting off with the room hire, we're looking to increase the charge, the hourly charge for the menu in theatre. So that would go from £30.50 per hour to £35, with £18.60 changing to £21 per concession. And the hourly charge for room D would increase from £8.50 to £10. And concessions would be £6 to £8. So the daily charges would also increase. So we've got £152.50 currently per day for the menu in theatre. So that would increase to £175, and room D would increase from £42.50 to £49. And likewise, the weekly charges would increase as well. So we've got 762 at the moment. That would move to 875 for the menu in, and the room D charge would increase from 212 to 245. So if we move on to the History Centre, this is really where we're trying to simplify some of the charges. So previously there were a number of charges sort of related to the same thing. So, for example, the baptism, marriage and confirmation certificates, the charge has increased from £12 to £31, so that might seem like a fairly large jump, but that does also reflect the parochial church council fee, which includes searches. So all of the costs would be wrapped up into a single charge rather than having some hidden costs. So we've also got some other increases there. So we've got research and transcription fees. So currently we charge £14 for every 30 minutes or £27 for an hour. we'd be looking to increase it to £15 for every 30 minutes, and there would be a maximum of 3 hours offered to each customer. And then we've got a £7 charge for digital photography, and that was introduced to bring together some charges from various areas. So other charges would remain unchanged, and the only other addition would be the printing charges. So we're currently trialling a new printing service called Print. So that allows people to print from their own devices in libraries, whereas previously they'd have to sign up for a membership card and use one of our PCs. So this Print trial is currently active at the moment, and it will end at the end of March. And depending on how successful it is, we would be looking to run a report on that as well. But in the meantime, the charge for that service, it would increase from 10 pence per sheet for printing to 20 pence. And that's just to reflect what the potential cost would be to run the service. And I think that just about covers it.
Thank you very much, Dan. So I think this is largely about covering costs and sustainability of some of those services and room charges. So I think I'm happy with the suggestions, and there's also an element of modernisation there in terms of the printing. Councillor Udy?
No, but it might be a question for someone about that projector in the Methuen room. Is it fixed? Is it working? Does it work?
Well, it depends which projector you're referring to. We've got a couple of projectors. Some
A huge one, that like crazy one, because the last time I looked around the back was probably when I was first councillor, almost 4 years ago, because we had a look around to see what the deal was with that room. Because
we've possibly got 2 newer ones.
Oh, if you
now it depends how long ago it was.
Itching to answer.
Hello, sorry. Both projectors that are located on the ceiling in the Menuhin room have come from the You Don't Know Sherlock Yet exhibition from City Museum and have been installed up there. I know how to make them work, and I know where the remote controls are, so I can, please message me. I'm quite happy to help you set that up. It all works, it's all fine. Thanks to the We Shine Illusions Mystery Project. They're super duper and they're brilliant and they work.
that would cover half the question, but there's that massive metal one in the back room, you know, the projector room at the back of the, like, if we got the other projectors, I guess it's a bit more redundant now, isn't it?
Okay, Dave seems to have... This is definitely a tangent I didn't anticipate, so I'm going to close it down relatively quickly, but
Okay.
Dave...
This is a legacy from the Arts Centre, and it's an old 35mm film projector, which of course isn't really used anymore now. But it's there. There's nothing more to say about that, but we wouldn't be using that for room bookings, really.
So it sounds like we should be handing that over to Jane and team for slightly different. No? Okay. Okay, slight tangent there. Thank you all. Charges approved. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And we'll move forward to item 10, Museums Access Policy, which is Felicity.
Thank you, Councillor Dowling. I want to share the access policy for Portsmouth Museums and recommend that it's approved. We're very passionate in the museum service that all residents are able to access our collections and our museums. And we've got a strong commitment to supporting the council's priorities around health and well-being and the role that culture can play in really improving people's lives. So we're also an accredited museum, so we museum service, so we meet the nationally agreed standards for best practice of what a museum should be. And so the purpose of this access policy is to kind of just pull together what we are kind of statement of intent around access, but also it's to help us with that reapplication for accreditation, which will be coming up this year. Obviously won't go through everything, but just to give you a kind of general idea of what we're working towards, it includes things like recognising the social model of disability, that people aren't disabled by their impairment, they're disabled by the environment around them or people's attitudes to them. We've got a commitment to making sure that whenever we create services or activities for people, that we do it with the people that they're intended for. And I should add that this policy contains an action plan, so it's actually how we put it into practice, and that includes elements of the policy are included in staff training. So we've got our customer charter, and that is trained out to all staff, and it also supports the new museum strategy as well. I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicity. And yeah, the more accessible we can make everything we do, the better. The fewer people that are marginalised by the work we do, the better. It's a really strong piece of work. Councillor Udy? Thumbs up from the PPP. Everything's approved as written in the documentation. Thank you. We'll move forward to the Museum's Collections Development Policy.
Yeah, that's me. Thank you, Councillor Dowling. A collection development policy is an essential part of the Council's collections management framework. It describes what the Council will and will not acquire for its collections. Clearly, we want to collect material that is relevant to the people who live here. Similar to the access policy and plan, the collection development policy is required for accreditation, the national standard for museums in England, managed by Arts Council England. And the thing about accreditation is it's a continually improving standard. So each time we go for accreditation, the Arts Council asks us for a little bit more. We're due to, as Felicity said, we're due to apply for accreditation or reapply this year, I think in April. And this time round, we've produced a collection development policy for the DDay Story, separately to the rest of the museum service. And we've done that because of the amount of work and the things we learned as part of the DDay Story project. Most of the content of the policy documents is based on a standard template required by the Arts Council, and it covering the things that the Arts Council thinks are important and are important, like legally acquiring things. I think the other thing that the policy allows you to do, as well as sort of saying what you collect in general, it also allows you to identify the priorities for collecting and also the priorities for rationalisation and disposal. And on this occasion, in terms of trying to align our documents and align the other policy documents with the museum strategy, we have a focus on making decisions about what is collected and what is perhaps disposed of in dialogue with our communities and our residents. So these decisions are no longer just made by staff. So for example, one of the priorities for the service as a whole would be to collect material which relates and is relevant to underrepresented or missing local communities and minority groups, and as I say, we'd collect those in dialogue. For example, material relating to migration. So that's just an example of the principles which underlie our collecting policy, and they do need to be formally approved for the purposes of accreditation. That's all, thank you.
Well, much like Adrian's grant, we will of course make sure we get the accreditation by bringing it to the meeting. I'm very interested to know at which point do my secondary school exercise books become worth donating so that they're memorialised forever?
I suppose if they contain a good story, we might. It's always interesting to have a few school books.
Account for 8 years, there must be something there.
Yeah, happy to take a look, Councillor Dowling.
I'll think about what controversial things I've done that I'm not supposed to tell people about, ready for when I'm 70.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Udy. Every single, yeah, I know it's sad. Any questions that aren't about my exercise books? In which case, recommendations approved as written. Thank you very much. That takes us to the DDay Story Forward Plan. Is this Ross? And Ross, is this your first public meeting of this sort?
It is, yes.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So this document sets out the way ahead for the DDay Story prior to the end of Heritage Lottery funding. finishing, and building on all the work that's been done since the museum was redeveloped back in 2018. So the vision for the museum is, our vision is to be the national D-Day hub with an international reputation. We want to bring the D-Day narrative to life for the 21st century, explain how ordinary people played extraordinary parts in a turning point in history, and reveal D-Day's legacy for the present day. So within that, there's four main aims, which are firstly to create an exciting, must-see environment which everyone feels is for them. Delivering an imaginative mix of events and activities for visitors of all ages, ensuring there's always something new to see and do. Delivering excellent formal and informal learning programs to inspire young people, and to establish the D-Day Story as a national hub for learning about D-Day, working with UK and international partners to share knowledge about D-Day with audiences around the world. So over the next few years, and by 2025, we want to continue to grow visitor numbers, building on the successful last few years the museum's experienced. Ensure that over a third of new visitors hear about the D-Day Story through social media, building on a number of projects we've done in recent times. Aiming that 30% of visitors to the museum are made up of young people and children, and 20% of our volunteer population as well. And that's really important in keeping the story of D-Day alive for future generations. Following on from that, allowing every Portsmouth primary school to have visited the museum, and building formal relationships with universities across the country. Ensuring that all of our collections are available online, and ensuring that the D-Day Story is viewed as a place to be, as a multi-purpose venue with a variety of reasons to visit. So working towards that, we want to put our team at the museum at the heart of everything we do, so ensuring that we have a staffing structure which allows there to be a dedicated team which are close to the collection and can grow their skills and experiences at the same time. And ensuring that our volunteers also remain a key part of what we do, particularly in delivering the landing craft to visitors. We want to build on our volunteering experience to make sure there's many opportunities as there can be for people to volunteer at the museum. By doing that, that will allow us to grow the visitor experience further and continue to evolve that in the years ahead. And by doing that, that would enable people to want to revisit, tell other people about the museum and come and experience everything we've got to offer, which is great. Building on all the investment for the past 2 years, we want to continue to add new things, such as audio guides, new trails, new tours, develop our groups offer, particularly important whilst the international market remains muted. Offer a wide range of events that appeal to different demographics right throughout the year. Continue to build our offer for schools. Market the museum effectively, particularly using the landing craft and the iconic imagery which it has, and finally continue to grow our retail opportunities in the shop, particularly looking at opportunities that come from the landing craft. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ross. And Jane, I've just thought of a story, because actually the D-Day Story is where I met the Queen during the Golden Jubilee, and I would have been at school at the time, so if I can link an exercise book with the date of that visit, there's something to go on.
Excellent.
Wonderful. In all seriousness, I think this forward plan is really important, actually, because we're moving into another stage for the D-Day Story, particularly as we're entering the point at which the living history of D-Day is being lost through to the fullness of time, and it's a story that is particularly poignant and important for Portsmouth, as well as the national and international implications of D-Day, and we don't want that connection to be lost due to the people being lost. So that forward plan, looking at the engagement with young people in particular, and the focus on learning in broader terms, really, really important from my perspective. So I think it's a really positive way forward. And thank you for your presentation, as it's your first meeting. Councillor Udy. Is that no, I'd have been in junior school. Any questions in relation to the forward plan? I'm going to say that was no questions. Ross, thank you very much. Everything's approved as per the recommendations. Although, actually, I think we're just noting anyway. We're noting in order for it to be noted. Is that correct? Yes, okay, wonderful, noted. On to the last agenda item, and we've got 11 minutes until Councillor Udy has to leave. 20 past, 4 minutes. Claire, Directorate Business Plan.
Thank you, Councillor Dowling. So just briefly the context. So the last Directorate Business Plan was approved at committee in March 2020, just before we went into the pandemic and then the lockdown. The new plan reflects the impact of the pandemic across all our services and sets out our plans to move forward into the recovery period. So the plan outlines the strategies for each of our service areas to meet the Council objectives, as set out in the City Vision 2040 and reflected in the administration's priorities. The plan includes, where relevant, national strategies, funding opportunities and partners, and regional strategies. And in addition to the service strategies, in the plan we have the key performance indicators for the Directorate risk matrix, an update on all our major projects, and our Directorate's contribution to environmental sustainability. In terms of the practicality of the plan, we share it with all our key partners, so they have an introduction to the work that we do, and we use it as a kind of roadmap for all new staff, both in our Directorate and across the Council generally. And we will be sharing it with all members, the Chief Executive, the City Solicitor, and all Directors. And the document also contains a panel on the page, which is a nice quick view to just see how each service relates to the City Vision objectives. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, Claire. I think it's really important to note how this sits in relation to the City Vision, because this is the kind of document that a lot of councils would have, but it would sit internally. It wouldn't necessarily go to a public meeting. It wouldn't be published publicly. But the fact that we choose to do that, I think, is a clear message around how, as the Directorate, Culture and Leisure contributes to the wider city beyond simply the delivery of services. So I'm really grateful that it gets the airing it does here. And I think it's a really strong piece of work and forward-looking piece of work from yourself, Claire. Councillor Udy. No questions. Wonderful. In which case, do I need to note or approve? I've not paid attention. Am I approving?
Yes, you need to approve that we can.
Approved. Thank you very much, Claire, and that's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much for your time.